Dating back to high school, I was a typical American athletic kid. I was a fat kid. Played football, lifted weights constantly. I was relatively healthy, or so I thought. When I was 18, I was diagnosed as diabetic. I was actually pretty clueless. I saw multiple doctors. I actually was in the middle of my freshman year of college. I came back home, took a medical withdrawal from school, and I think diabetes, it affects different people differently, but for me it was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna take medicine, and I'm gonna change the way I eat, but if you don't, you're lethargic, you're sleepy, maybe you get this cotton mouth thing going on, you use the restroom a lot. Otherwise, it's just kind of there, and you don't really realize that you got all that sugar running through your system that, that's like glass running through your kidneys. A few years later, I was in the hospital with pancreatitis, and that's because I wasn't paying attention to it, wasn't making the changes I needed to make. I was recently married, and I think it was more like a shock. I hadn't really accepted that the diabetes was making such an impact on me, that it was hurting me on the inside. I continued to eat like I'd eaten before, and I actually think it was on a Halloween night that I ended up in the hospital. We're passing out candy, and we're being the young married couple. They're loving the kids coming by, and didn't have any kids yet, and I'm popping candy in my mouth, and I probably hadn't eaten well for days before that, and all of a sudden it was like something exploded inside me, and it just didn't feel right. Couldn't sleep. It was extreme pain. That was a pretty low point. Seven or 8 years ago, I was diagnosed with deep vein thrombosis in my right leg, which is blood clots, and I had complete occlusion from the knee down, so I had almost no blood flow. I guess following that, we kind of figured out that some of that might be related to compartment syndrome in my lower legs, which is not normal. It was a chronic exertional compartment syndrome, which is not something after a traumatic injury, but rather, we'd go out and run and it would just be extremely painful. And it turned out that was actually the pressure in my muscles building up so much that it was cutting off blood flow to my feet and nerve sensation to my feet. It was just brutally painful. And I realized that all of my health was in question. And it wasn't just the diabetes, it wasn't just taking medicine. That wasn't the only solution, that I really needed to treat my body better. At this point, with the blood clots, I've got 3 small children. I don't want to risk what I have with them and what I have left of life just by sitting back and feeling like, well, hey, this sandwich is really good, or this, candy tastes delicious, or, I don't really feel like working out. I might be sacrificing 5 or 10 years of my life because I'm not making harder choices. So I actually started out trying to do some triathlons to get better, get healthy. The problem with triathlon is that you need to run. I, at the time, was still really struggling with this compartment syndrome piece. It was just painful. A lot of people can't run, joints, issues. A friend of mine at work, he was telling me about CrossFit, and I was really intimidated. I'd heard all this stuff about how intense CrossFit was, and you're gonna come in here and yell, and he told me, that's not what it is. Come over, see what it's like. It's functional fitness. It's training for life in general. It was exactly what I was looking for, because instead of the triathlon piece where it was kind of a lonely pursuit and the running was really preventing me from progressing because of the pain, coming in here was like, here it is. Let's train all of you. Let's have a coach. Let's motivate and encourage together.
Having a challenging weight.
So Jared's been amazing. He's a phenomenal coach because he doesn't treat you like you aren't invested in the process, even if you're not capable of doing as much as you think you should be able to do.
For a while, he wasn't sure if he had enough blood flow to his lower legs. He couldn't run. And so when we would scale things, he'd have to walk. We'd get him on the rower. He was pretty competitive there. Get him on an air bike, and he would enjoy that a lot.
My first few weeks were brutal. I was struggling. I've reduced medications and even come off of my insulin completely.
Working in the industry for 15 years, I didn't really think I'd find myself in a spot where we would have somebody that would be able to beat diabetes, a chronic illness that for most times is a death sentence for people.
I don't know if it was 2 or 3 months into that class, I think I'd dropped 8 pounds, in overall weight, which was not a lot, but I knew I was a lot stronger. So I had done body fat measurements before, went back and did them again, and I realized I dropped like 24 pounds of fat in that 3 months. So it was a body composition change. That was shocking, but at the same time, I was slated to go in for lab tests. As a diabetic, I go every 6 months. And my A1C had dropped from nearly 8 to 5.8. You get into that 5.5 and below level, you're talking like almost a normal human being. My blood sugar was solid. At that point in time, since I hadn't really changed the diet dramatically, I'm going, oh, no, this is working. Coming in here, putting in the work, a few days a week, increasing my muscle mass. My body is obviously more sensitive to the insulin it's producing. I mean, I was taking 63 units of insulin a day. To see the results I've seen for myself, yeah, people should do this. This is an answer to prayer for me. It's an answer to these problems in my body, and others can do that too. They can come in and see results, live a healthier life, live longer, enjoy their life more. Come do it.